Bear with me while I say something that's going to sound a little crazy, but good breath support is not necessarily your answer to every vocal problem. Welcome back to Singing Tips with LJD Studios, the space where we take difficult singing concepts and break them down so you can actually understand and implement them for better singing. I'm Laura, and today we're going to talk about how what you do at the vocal fold level affects your breath support and just the overall relationship between your respiratory system and your vocal tract. But before we get into it, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you haven't already, download my free guide, The Three-Tiered Approach to Becoming a Better Singer, linked in the description. Additionally, if you would like some direct feedback on your singing from yours truly, but you're not ready to take the plunge into private lessons, make sure to check out my membership option, also linked in the description. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about why good breath support might not be the answer to your problems, even if you feel like you're running out of air. Breath support might not be your problem. So let's say this is you. Do you feel like you take a big breath into your belly and into your ribs? You hold the ribs open, or you hold the solar plexus open, or you lengthen the pelvic floor down, whatever it is that your teacher or your YouTube video teacher told you to do, right? You're doing it. You're like, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it so hard, and yet I'm still running out of breath. Or perhaps the opposite happens where you take that big full breath and like partway through you feel all this like pressure and tension up here and yet somehow still feel air hungry, right? These are a couple scenarios that might occur. You're not doing anything wrong with your breath management. Where you are struggling is at the vocal fold level. So that's what we're going to get into today. If you have already downloaded my free guide, then you know that your vocal instrument really breaks down into three components, which is your air, your vocal cords, and your throat and mouth area. And all three of these components of your instrument are like this. When you make an adjustment to one, you always affect the other, okay? And so, and particularly in regards to your vocal folds and your respiratory system, there is an incredibly strong relationship. So in order to feel this relationship, the first thing I want you to do is to take a breath in and now hold your breath. Don't pass out, but hold it for a long time. Hold it until it feels really uncomfortable and until you feel that air hunger. As you do that, what you should feel is this buildup of pressure in your chest and in your throat, right? You're going to feel like the air, it wants to come through your throat. The thing that is holding it back, that is keeping it down, right, that's allowing you to hold your breath are your vocal cords. They are clamped tightly shut, and that air can't get out. It can't get past your vocal folds. Make sure you exhale when you've reached that point of like, okay, I feel the pressure. And when you do, what you might also notice is there's like a slight click on the sound of as you let the air out. That's because all this breath pressure has built up beneath the vocal folds. We call that subglottal air pressure, very fancy term. It's just the pressure of the air underneath your vocal folds, right? And then it bursts through as they open up. That's what you're hearing, okay? So when you're managing your air for singing and you're thinking about holding your ribs out or your solar plexus area out or whatever it is you're doing, right? Ultimately what you're doing is you're kind of holding some air back so that all the air doesn't come straight up into your throat, right? So that you send just the right amount of air to the vocal folds. But your vocal cords are sort of the last layer of defense in terms of how much air comes through versus how much air goes back down this way, right? And when we get air moving up and then air moving down, right, that creates this little like pressure system that puts energy into the sound. Okay, so what we want is we want good acoustic energy. That's going to give us efficiency. That's going to allow you to sing longer phrases, longer notes, etc. So let's play with a couple of different vocal fold settings or configurations. Just whisper. Why don't you whisper happy birthday? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Right? You can feel the vocal cords, they are not fully coming together, right? And so there's a lot of air coming through that space, right? That's a very different experience than what you maybe just felt when you were holding your breath and the vocal folds were like fully locked down, right? So a whisper is an extreme example, but if you have any extra air coming through in the sound, that's lost energy, right? So now think sort of Marilyn Monroe of like, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. I'm like out of breath after one phrase, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with singing it breathy. You're just just know, like if that's the sound that you're going for, you're not going to have the ability to sustain things as long as you would if you weren't making a breathy sound, right? So no matter, it doesn't matter what you're doing down here. You can be doing everything perfectly in regards to how you're managing your air within the container of your respiratory system. But at the vocal fold level, you're not getting complete closure, right? That last layer of defense in terms of how much air actually leaves your body, right? Then you're just losing air faster. And again, that's fine. That can be an artistic choice that you're making. However, if you are singing with a breathy tone and that's not really the artistic choice that you want, that's where you can start to sort of revamp and be like, okay, how can I get more vocal cord closure so that I can sing longer without having to like work so hard down here? Now, this can be sort of a difficult thing to diagnose yourself. You might not realize that there's a little extra whisper in the sound. So the best thing that you can do if you're trying to kind of learn on your own is to record yourself singing and listen back and just listen for any little extra air in the sound. It could be really subtle of like, happy birthday to you, right? That's not like an overly breathy sound, but there is some extra breath coming through, right? And so that's again where we need to start to teach the vocal cords to come more fully together. So there's a myriad of ways that you can kind of go about this. If you are erring on one side of something, one side of a coin, right, which is not enough vocal cord closure, I like to go to the opposite extreme and then eventually you can walk it back, right? So try making a super pressed sound. Don't go so far that you're like coughing or there's like a tickle in your throat, but make it kind of ugly. It's like, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, now I'm getting to the end of every phrase and I feel like I just have to exhale because now my cords are closed pretty tightly and I'm containing a lot of that air within my body. And so what I feel when I get to the end of the phrase is more like, I want to let that air out of my body now, right? So now I've felt this opposite extreme. And then I can kind of like walk it back from there. Okay, go now like a little less pressed, a little less pressed until you find that spot where you're like, oh, here we go. This feels easy. And yes, singing is work in the sense that it's an athletic endeavor, but it should like easy should be a great benchmark to go for. If I don't know, I don't know you, obviously. So whoever you are watching this video, if there's a particular athletic activity that you enjoy doing, right? So I like to run. I'm a runner. Um, there are days when my legs feel like lead weights and it's just awful. And then there are days when I feel like I could just run forever. I feel great, right? It's still athletic. I'm still putting out energy, but it feels easy. That's how we want your singing to feel. So that can be a good benchmark as you're playing with this of like, I don't have to work so hard here in my respiratory system. Like, yes, I'm still taking that breath into my belly, my ribs. Yes, I'm still sort of managing my air in a similar manner, but now it feels easy. Make that your benchmark. Now let's look at the opposite example. So if you have too much vocal cord closure, right? If you're erring toward that pressed side, what you're likely eventually going to feel as you sustain a phrase, like let's say you're trying to do happy birthday all in one breath. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Laura. I start to feel like tension and pressure here in my chest and in my throat, and yet weirdly feel air hungry. Fun fact, the reason for that is not that you need more oxygen. But I mean, if you were looking closely at me, the first thing I did when I finished that phrase was I exhaled. What your body is responding to is the buildup of carbon dioxide. And so it's making you feel air hungry, but you're not really hungry for oxygen. You're just wanting to expel that carbon dioxide, right? And so that's what you might be feeling. If you've got too much vocal cord closure, that's similar to that experience of holding your breath for a long time. The cords are more tightly closed, or they're spending more time closed than open while you're phonating. And all that air is getting contained and it's not coming through. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm holding it. I'm having to hold it all back. Right? And I just want to let it go. Right. So you might do the inverse of what I just did a second ago and like go for this like super breathy sound and then walk it back, walk it back, walk it back, walk it back until you land at that place where your breath management feels easy, it feels pliable, and you feel like you can sing long phrases without a lot of effort. So that's it. Hopefully now you understand that there's this incredibly important relationship that happens between your respiratory system and the level of your vocal cords, and that your vocal cords can have a really big impact on what you're feeling in terms of your breath support. So breath support, while important, is not always the answer to your breath management problems. Good luck, you guys, and happy singing.